Hello everybody and Happy New Year. Kind of an ambitious video here for 2026. I want to talk about my trifecta, the three stocks that I like the most right now and that I cover the most on this channel. They are Tesla, they are Strategy, they are HIMS. These are my top three positions in my portfolio. And there is also, as the growthier part of the market is not doing well right now, there's an adage that comes to mind that advises concentrating portfolios in the bear. In the bear, one sometimes does better having fewer positions. And so that's what I plan on doing in 2026. I want to focus on MSTR, focus on Tesla, focus on HIMS, focus on understanding them more, researching them more, and building ever more conviction. Note that, my tax selling video yesterday, I sold a few stocks for tax selling this year. None of these stocks were part of the package. These are holds, beyond 2030 for me. So I guess now a 4-year-old, but, I look at them as longer stories, decade-long stories, cornerstones of my portfolio. Note how these three create somewhat of a diversified idea. So you have Tesla. Tesla, of course, is it's a main AI player, is the way I would put it. It's a $1.4 trillion company. Then you have the commodity play, which is Bitcoin, the Bitcoin play and Strategy. 45 billion market cap, went up to 100 billion, kind of got halved recently, but still a mid cap. And then you have HIMS. HIMS is the super high growth kind of like traditional company, a company that you can judge through traditional metrics, a company that is very, very cheap for traditional metrics, but that I consider very, very innovative. And I think HIMS has a shot at being a big tech company one of these days because HIMS is entirely different. Note how all of these companies are disruptive, very, very disruptive, but also very much misunderstood. And in fact, many of you who watch this video, you may agree on one of these three stocks, but not agree on the other two, because they're widely misunderstood about the market. There's a lot of loud voices against every single one of these stocks. For example, the loud voices against Tesla say that self-driving cars are never going to be a thing. You're never going to get approval. You need LiDAR. Elon Musk lied so many times on the timeline. He's a grifter. He's a crook. You get so much FUD. Some people calling it Elon derangement syndrome. You get so much FUD that people don't see that Tesla already won. People don't see that robotaxi is already there. People don't see that FSD is a thing. Same thing for Saylor. Michael Saylor and Strategy, heavily disruptive, heavily misunderstood, heavily criticized. People calling Bitcoin a Ponzi, of course, call Strategy a Ponzi as well. People call Saylor a fraud. They use, some case unrelated to Strategy with taxes in Virginia, and they say, oh, Saylor's a fraud, look, because he had to settle a case. Well, if you settle, it just means you want to settle because it's a hassle. That's why you settle, right? It's like, that doesn't mean we have lost that case. You just settled, which is the wise thing to do for any billionaire. So that's another thing, right? There's the third storm, so much third storm, and of course, respected people, like people with high knowledge of stocks, still call Strategy a leverage play. They've never looked at the balance sheet. It's so frustrating. Strategy is not a leverage play. There is next to no leverage. There's literally no leverage. There's next to nothing. There's something like 9% leveraged. It's not a leverage play whatsoever at all. It's an ATM story, mostly to this day, to my despair, right? To my despair. Strategy is still an ATM story towards the end of 2025. The past 3 months, we've still mostly been an ATM story to my despair, but we are an ATM story. So the third, calling Strategy a leverage play, the third is already in place. We haven't even started to add leverage because we haven't started the preferred. The preferreds have yet to take off. We're at the very beginning of the preferred. But the market already calls it a leverage play. We're not even there yet. I can't even imagine the wall of FUD that we're going to have against Strategy in 2026. But Strategy's performance is going to be dependent on the price of Bitcoin. And as Saylor said wisely, yesterday night, did you end the year 2025 with more Bitcoin than you had at the beginning of 2025? And if you think Bitcoin is a proxy for money, this is the same as asking, did you end the year with more money than you did at the beginning of the year? And then last company that I want to talk about, heavily misunderstood, of course, is HIMS. HIMS, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt against HIMS changes every year. First year I covered it, it was ED pills. Second year as I covered it, it was marketing. Oh, the company's going to die if you stop the marketing. The third year I'm covering it, now it's GLP-1. People saying, oh, people are not going to buy GLP-1 because they want to use their insurance. Oh, GLP-1 is not going to be a thing. Even though, never mind, GLP-1 is less than 15% of a HIMS revenue. Never mind, they grew their sales quite a bit in Q3 despite losing the Novo partnership. They dismiss it as GLP-1. I remember vividly when HIMS was being dismissed in early 2024 as a marketing company. Oh, it's just marketing. If you stop the marketing, the company's not going to do well. And now we realize the marketing is highly accretive. Now we realize the payoff on that marketing is less than 6 months. So anyways, and then the ED pills, that were the early days, the early day FUD, right? The reality, HIMS is the invention of something called healthcare. The reality is we don't have healthcare right now. We have sick care. Sick care is the government trying to manage the sick and spend as little as possible for, hopefully an optimal result, spending as little as possible. And HIMS is not that. HIMS is a 0-to-1 company applying the concepts of tech to disrupt an industry. Just like Spotify disrupted the music industry by giving you 6 orders of magnitude more songs for the same price, $10 a month, 100 million songs, versus $10, 10 songs 10 years ago. HIMS is trying to do the same thing, but for healthcare. They are a cost cutter. They are cutting out the gatekeepers. They are cutting out the doctors. There's no need to pay for doctors because knowledge is flat. AI has made knowledge free. I have Grok Doc on my phone, just like everybody. We all have Grok Doc or whatever AI you use. And Grok Doc is an expert in every single specialty. And AI is a much bigger story for HIMS. And HIMS is an innovator. Most people don't see it. HIMS customizes the drugs. HIMS is a digital pharmacy. HIMS is AI. So as you can see, this is a very ambitious video today. So let me get started. And I'm going to try to make a few points every time about each stock and hopefully new points. We'll see, Tesla, keep in mind, half the YouTube channels on the internet are about Tesla. So I'm definitely not going to do justice for Tesla. But let me tell you some of a few points as to why I love Tesla from a qualitative standpoint. First of all, Tesla is the best engineering firm in the world, no doubt. And it is led by the best engineer in the world, which is Elon Musk. Tesla is still to this day the top company to work for the world's best talent, regardless of the field. The world's best talent, you ask the best engineering schools, where do they want to go work? They all want to go work for Elon Musk and Tesla and one of the Tesla companies. Tesla is not a car company, and people get upset. I know the QSIP number says they're a car company, they're automobile, they're discretionary spending. That's what the QSIP number. But QSIP numbers are not reality, right? They say Facebook is communication services, like CNBC. Yeah, Facebook is like CNBC, right? Google is like CNBC. It's an advertising company. No, the QSIP number is not what makes the sector of the company. Tesla right now, most of the valuation for Tesla right now is a robotaxi company, disrupting the entire idea of transportation, period. We are disrupting the entire idea of transportation. The vision of Tesla, which they are implementing full steam in the United States, very long run speaking, 10 years from now, people will not own cars. This is already happening. Gen Zs are not getting their driver license. They don't see a point. And they would be right, by the way. I think one of the big debates, maybe 10 years from now, is going to be, should we be driving our own cars? Will driving be outlawed? Or will there just be a few roads, like in the country, where you can still drive old cars? But will we have zones in cities where only self-driving is allowed? That, I think, is also going to be a big debate of 10 years from now, right? Robotaxi is much cheaper than just about anything. The goal is to get it to 20 cents per mile for transportation, 20 cents per mile. This disrupts short trips by train, short trips by plane. This disrupts so much. If if you can just do whatever you want in your car and not drive, all of a sudden, driving 5 hours is not a hassle anymore. This is going to create so much more economic growth. People not driving their cars is going to create so much more economic growth because people will do something else. They will likely play in the car, video games or watch a show or Netflix or whatever. But some people are also going to walk in the car. It's going to be insane. It's going to be so cheap, so much cheaper than car ownership. See what has happened to the cost of insurance. The cost of car insurance is going through the roof in most states of the US and in most parts of the world. That's all going to be gone if people stop owning cars and just start paying 20 cents per mile, which I really firmly believe we're going to get there. Public transportation, going to be a thing of the past. Nobody's going to use public transportation if it costs 20 cents per mile to use a robotaxi. Tesla is about a machine that makes a machine. This is a car made by a machine, right? If you follow the big podcasts on this topic, the Cybercab is going to cost about $16,000 to make. It's going to be highly profitable. You're going to have making margin. You're going to have, I think it's between 10 and 20% profit margin on this. We don't know yet. 1 every 5 seconds. 1 gigafactory every 5 seconds. These will litter the streets. These cybercabs will litter the streets. Like if you go to China, the little scooters, the little electric scooters, litter the streets of China. These cybercabs are going to be just about everywhere. And that's going to be an enormous revolution if you ask me. And it already is beginning to be a revolution in San Francisco. It's taking the world by storm. Everybody's talking about it. So is Austin. 2026 will be the year of robotaxi, will be the year where Tesla will likely be recognized as a robotaxi company. But that's not all. That's not all you get with Tesla. You get what I call the side quests. So selling cars and being a vehicle, a car brand. That's a side quest. If they release the Roadster, that's definitely a side quest. The Cybertruck, that's a side quest. It's brand building. It's nice, but it's not where most of the cash is going to come. The cash is not going to come from selling these cars. Semi-trucks could be really, really big at some point and could be, part of a robotaxi company of its own. You could have a robo-transportation company. We could call it a robo-transport company story. And, the semi-trucks have a big potential disrupting railroads. Think about that. The Tesla Semi, in my view, has the potential to disrupt the railroads. The railroads were single-handedly the first industrial revolution in the UK, in the United States, throughout the developed world in the 1800s. And you have just one side quest that could be as big as that. We have the megapack business. The megapack business is nothing more than the disruption of the grid. These megapacks are absolutely amazing. You can just plug them in. They can simulate the same electrical signal as, say, a natural gas plant. They can replace peaker plants. They can store energy for months, by the way. Sure, most of them use them for temporary storage, but these megapacks are so much better. You only have leakage something like 1 to 2%, something like that. We're seeing enormous disruption in the grid, and that is thanks to these megapacks. A lot of people in the Tesla community argue, by the way, that the megapacks alone could justify the $1 trillion valuation of Tesla. Then we have a company that has a side quest of owning the transportation infrastructure. And by that, sure, you could look at the solar. Solar has a hard time picking up. Powerwall's doing well. And Powerwall coupled with chargers at home, plus, of course, the mega chargers throughout the United States and throughout the world, you could look at this as an entire parallel transportation infrastructure. Parallel electric transportation infrastructure. So it's as though Tesla is building Standard Oil of electricity as a side quest. And sure enough, most people with electric cars end up at Tesla mega chargers, right? Superchargers. They just end up there. And, and what if you add on to that a convenience store business? You add on to that a diner business, as we know we're starting to do an entertainment business. What if you add on to that and what if it's quite simply just going to be owned by Tesla? Gas stations going to be a thing of the past, and they're just going to be replaced by mega chargers. Imagine the size of that business. That business could be entirely huge. And people may say, oh, well, gas stations are going to be fine. You're always going to need gas. The problem is that most of these gas stations are businesses that are highly leveraged Keep that in mind. These gas stations, they cost millions of dollars, like 2 to 3 million, and they are highly leveraged. The typical gas station business owner, I don't know, it's a $2 million small gas station, they borrow 1.6 or 1.7 million. It only takes losing 20% of a business for the local gas station to go under. It doesn't take losing 80% of your business. Just a tad loss in business from people transitioning to EV or people simply transitioning to robotaxis, just a tad loss, a small loss can lead to the downfall of regular gas station infrastructure. And that, by the way, for Tesla, is a side quest too. And then I could go on. They have Bitcoin on the balance sheet, but more importantly, there's a little bit of a finance company going on with Tesla and their leases and all the vehicles that they sell. Another side quest, of course, is the repair shops. It's a vertically integrated company. They own everything. They own the repair business. They own the charging business. They own the manufacturing business. They own the lithium making. They own the software. And to top it all off, in my view, the only car business that would be quote-unquote interesting to own is a car business with no networks of dealers. Dealerships, if you follow a car business, you probably know the dealerships make all of the money. Not with Tesla. There's no dealerships with Tesla. So Tesla gets to make all of the margin of the car business is made by Tesla because you don't have to share it with a dealership. Ford, GM, they're in a world of hurts because of their dealership and their dealership taking all of the margin. Oh, not to mention the used business, the used Tesla business, the used car business. These are all side quests. If you, I'd be interested, I don't have time, but if you added up the value of all of the side quests, I cannot fathom how undervalued actually Tesla is. Let's talk about point number 5. AI. Tesla is all about their own hardware and their own software models, right? So they have hardware 4 right now. They're talking about making their own chips, right? Compute chips, 4 nanometers, a mega fab. We're talking about that. They own the hardware, they own the software. This is the same as Apple, right? Apple Computer. They own the hardware, they own the software. It works really great together. Tesla cars own the hardware, own the software, work really well together. And of course, this hardware and this software will transition to the wild card, which is Optimus. Optimus is the wild card, and I know most of TradFi still laughs at this, but try to just put a 1% odd of success on robots, right? On humanoid bots, put a 1% odd of success on that, and do an expected value analysis, putting a 1% odds of success. You'll see that just that 1% shot makes the Tesla stock too cheap. Have you seen this video from exactly 3 weeks ago? Seamless run. Optimus runs seamlessly. And I want to call your attention to what I think. I think a lot of people got it wrong. Like when they say, oh, humanoid bots are going to replace human labor. They're going to be just as good as a human. No. They're going to be much better than a human. They're not going to be as good. They're going to be better in every single way, like all software. You may have seen this video a few weeks ago, made the buzz. This is a robot from a lab, and it shows you how it threads the nut on that bolt, how quickly it moves. It moves lightning fast. In a split second, it's able to go through that thread. And what would take a human probably a minute, or at least 30 seconds, it does it in a single second. These robots are going to run faster. They're going to walk faster. They're going to wash your dishes, walk the factory floor. They're going to do everything so much faster. They're going to run faster. They're going to think faster. So this is more than just a disruption of human labor. This is the invention of a higher form of labor. Just like LLMs and AI did for knowledge, they are doing this. They are going after doing this for physical labor. And this wildcard, like I said, this wildcard will probably deserve entire YouTube channels just studying this wildcard. So that's why Tesla is my number 1 position right now, and it saved the portfolio, by the way, because I'm pretty strategy heavy, and strategy unfortunately has not MSTR, right? Strategy has not been doing well. Thank you, Tesla, for saving the year. And of course, this year, 2025 was the year of Tesla, right? 23-24 was the year of strategy, right? There's different years, different seasons. Assets have different seasons, but I think 2026 will still be the season of Tesla. That's what I firmly believe. we'll see how that goes. And you know what? If in 2026 Tesla stays flat, if we're still trading at about for $400 in 12 months, who cares? I don't mind. It's not like I'm in a hurry, right? And most of us on this channel, you have more investing years ahead of you than you have behind you. You know, people invest well into their 70s. Like, well into their 70s. Like, the whole idea that you need to draw down the portfolio to live is also, I think, a misguided idea. As if you needed to justify saving less money, so people say, oh, we're going to need to draw down the portfolio. You don't have to draw down the portfolio. You can make your portfolio part of your legacy, right? Or you can just love it. You can just love what you do. People used to own houses when they loved their castle. They loved their collection cars. You could love your stocks. Anyways, I ramble here. Moving on, let's talk about MSTR. MSTR, of course, is the tragedy of this year. 2025 was an awful year for Bitcoin and for MSTR. But see, this is key. I said for Bitcoin. So because 2025 was an awful year for Bitcoin, surprise, surprise, MSTR did way worse than Bitcoin. And that's what you would expect. People are leaving the space. People left the space. Every other influencer was saying we'd be well above 150 right now. Even analysts on MSTR stock at a price target higher than 150 on average for Bitcoin. So everybody was wrong on Bitcoin. People are leaving the space. The money is flowing to AI and, I don't know, silver or whatever. Guess what? The money will come back in the space. Bitcoin is so used to this volatility, it's not even funny. But it's true that if you're interested in MSTR, you first have to believe in Bitcoin. If Bitcoin fails, MSTR is going to fail. And that's perfectly fine. To me, this is more of an acceptable risk. It's a perfectly acceptable risk to me. If Bitcoin succeeds, though, I have a hard time seeing a scenario where MSTR is not the largest finance company in the world, the largest financial firm in the world. If Bitcoin succeeds, I think that's what's going to happen. And it's inevitable because they are marching towards 5% of the Bitcoin, well, roughly, right? 5% of Bitcoin supply. So they have 5% roughly of the Bitcoin supply. So this is insane. So if Bitcoin actually becomes as big as currency someday, I'm not even talking about replacing currency. I'm talking about what if down the road, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we talk about Bitcoin the same way we talk about the dollar, which is what we're headed. Today we talk about the euro, we talk about the dollar, we talk about the yuan. What if the average person also talks about Bitcoin? Oh, it's internet. I use Bitcoin. Right? Oh, it's USD. I'm in the US. I use USD. That alone, you're looking at an MSTR bag, which would be in the tens of trillions. Tens of trillions. And that's just if Bitcoin achieves the size of a respectable currency, like the euro or the USD or the yuan. And of course, Bitcoin believe that Bitcoin will be much bigger and that it will be the most respectable currency. They believe that, but we'll see. The point for MSTR is what? Malinvestment gets fixed. MSTR is here to fix malinvestment. We are moving back to a world where debt is backed by real assets and not an appraiser's opinion of value, for example, in the case of real estate. I don't know if you saw what happened in Baltimore. It's kind of a tragedy what happened in Baltimore. People were getting homes financed thinking the homes were worth $500,000 or $300,000. What you find out is the appraiser was a little shady. The home won't even sell for $60,000. And you said the home was worth $400,000. So you have a trad world's person's opinion who leads monetary printing, because make no mistake, when you get a mortgage, before that mortgage is repackaged and resold, that's pure money printing, that's the commercial banks, and it's backed by something that doesn't have a real value. And the same is true for most debt by cash flows, backed by cash flows. You could say mortgages work kind of the same way. Personal debt works the same way. Personal debt, if you go borrow money to buy a car for 7 or 8 years, the bank is looking at your job, and it's looking at the durability of your job and the durability of your cash flow from your job. And in a world full of disruption, in a world where everything changes so fast, what is the durability of cash flow-backed debt? Ask yourself that. What is the durability of cash flow-backed debt? Right? Would you, I don't know, would you lend $1 million to a family of screenwriters in Los Angeles right now, right? $1 million at 6% interest. Would you take that risk? Of course you would not take that risk. Nobody would take that risk. The only reason why people take that risk is because of malinvestment. And it's because commercial banks create the money. Yes, the Fed creates a little bit of money, and we're going to see the Fed create a whole bunch more money when Mr. Dove comes on May 1st. But the problem of the system goes way beyond the Fed. It comes from the fact that it's the commercial banks that create the money out of thin air based on their quote-unquote confidence that the house is worth as much as it appraised at. And think about population declines around the world. Is the house worth as much as it has been appraised at? Probably not. Right? Especially, I'm in Europe right now. Especially in Europe. I can tell you, I see a lot of vacant old homes that I doubt are the worth that people think they're worth in euros. I really, really highly doubt that. It's a mountain of cards. And so, of course, Saylor comes in and he's fixing that. How is he fixing that? He's fixing that by creating Bitcoin-backed debt. The debt, if you buy a debt instrument from Michael Saylor's strategy, if you buy Stretch, which, by the way, just reached 11% yield right now, if you buy Stretch, there's Bitcoin on the balance sheet backing Stretch. 3-1, 4-1. That's the BTC rating, is how much Bitcoin on the balance sheet is actually backing that debt. And the idea being that Bitcoin is hard money, backing that debt. And you can know in real time the value of that. There's no appraisal on the home backing the debt and people making sure that the home actually appraises the value of the debt. I hope that makes a lot of sense. And let me get a little further. Let's even imagine company debt, corporate debt, lending money, bonds, like company bonds. Like, I see right now, I see kids on X vibe code their full version of Netflix with frankly better show trailers, all AI, in 5 minutes. Like, what's the durability of the cash flows of a company like Netflix if you can have a kid who can create an app that can disrupt Netflix, right? I fundamentally believe, I think some of the next in line disruption, for example, is Spotify. If we move to a world where all of the music we listen to is AI generated, what is the role of Spotify, right? Because people are going to want to listen to AI generated music. So you just go to the AI and ask AI, hey, I like classical music, AI. Why don't you make me some music that I'm going to like? So, and I see the same thing happening to shows. Hey, I like this idea. Make me a show about this historical figure. Make me a 10-hour documentary about this historical figure. And I could see AI just make you the documentary about the historical figure. And it makes you exactly the length. How long you got? Oh, I got a ride. I got a 10-hour ride. I'm going from Texas to New Mexico. It's going to take me 10 hours to get there. I want to learn about George Washington. Please, AI, make me a documentary about George Washington that lasts 10 hours. And the AI does that with the voice of your choice and the graphics of your choice and the style of your choice. So ask yourself, the very durability of the economy that we have on is not on good standing. We are not headed towards an inflationary world. We are headed towards a highly deflationary world. What's going to happen to all of that debt that's backed by cash flows that just won't exist anymore? $315 trillion worth of debt backed by cash flows that are about to disappear because this value is about to disappear because it's about to become free. Right? Same for real estate. How much of the value of real estate is monetized? Value of real estate is inflated because people think of real estate as an investment and don't necessarily look at Bitcoin as an option. But we're seeing what's happening when silver and gold are becoming more and more an option. Have we over monetized real estate? Is real estate the favorite, propped up investment of the middle class? Is real estate trading at a much greater value than its utility value, i.e. just shelter? And the answer to that, for me, is a resounding yes. So that's what Saylor's instruments are doing. He's creating Bitcoin-backed debt and going after all of this capital and competing against this capital. And Stretch is yielding 11%, now. and it's backed by Bitcoin. It's not backed by cash flow. It's not backed by the cash flow of Blockbuster or Walgreens. It's backed by raw Bitcoin. So anyways, most people still don't see this because it requires so much to see this, but I see it, and I think MSTR is here. The purpose of MSTR is to fix bad credit. Fix bad credit in the world, and we have so much bad credit in the world. And this is something hopefully gold bugs and Bitcoin bugs can kind of come together, around that idea that, in the real world, if you study a lot, if you look at medieval times, debt was about, 30%. Interest rate on debt was definitely double digit, but it was closer to 50% when it was too close to 10%, because in a world backed by nature, the risk that you take of giving somebody money and it's a merchant and they leave and they go far, far, far away, and you're hoping they come back, so you're betting on the cash flow they earn and you're betting on their durability. Actually, most people, to give up that wealth, they want something like a 30% or 45%. How much money would you require as an interest if you just lent money to someone in the street? Probably a third. Probably a third a year of the worth as interest rates, maybe higher. Maybe higher. Anyways, I could go on about this. I'm very passionate about this. To me, we are at the dawn of a world of disruption, the beginning of a world of disruption. And of course, let me finish with HIMS. I'll pause the video a second, kind of take a rest, and then I'll talk to you about HIMS. Let me pause the video a second. All right, let me finish this video with another stock, HIMS, the third and final stock in my trifecta. HIMS also going through some hate right now, along with strategy. Strategy and HIMS pretty much hated right now. Understanding HIMS is tough. What do you have to know to understand HIMS? Well, to understand HIMS, you first need to see the flaws and limitations of health insurance for what it is. And these flaws and limitations there's a few of them. But the biggest one is insurance, by design, requires the prices to go up year after year, because the way insurance companies work is that they have to hit a target medical loss ratio, and if they start saving money for their customers, then they have to give back some of their profits. So insurance companies, to grow, they need to charge more year after year. It's a very, very sneaky system that is in place, but essentially a healthcare that relies mostly from insurance companies, mostly on insurance companies, by design, because of a medical loss ratio and the targets in medical loss ratio, by design has to charge more year after year. There's another problem with insurance companies is that most insurance companies actually follow the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services standards, which is what dictates who gets reimbursed for what procedures, how, when, and of course, this is for people who are 65 plus, and also Medicaid, but mostly 65 plus. But insurance companies just follow these standards, and these standards, the CMS standards, are much more concerned by cost savings than they are concerned by actual things like innovation or doing what needs to be done. And then the final point that you need to understand why HIMS is so powerful is that if you are going to accept insurance, unfortunately, you are going to move too slow. Insurance moves too slow. A company that's 0 to 1, a company that's growing at more than 50% year over year every year, a company growing that fast can't go through insurance, because if you have to submit for a reimbursement somewhere, 3 to 6 weeks, insurance fights to not pay. They do everything to not pay. They fight the procedures. They fight whatever doctors say. And most of the job of a doctor today is to write a note properly and to find like an accepted standard of care or a good way to write up the procedure so that the insurance actually covers the procedure. And insurance are very good at trying to not pay what they should pay for. And this back and forth process takes a very long time, which means that he can't have a hyper growth company that relies on insurance. Because if you have a 0 to 1 company that were to rely on insurance, you'd be, first of all, in an impossible scenario, you could not make a 0-to-1 product because you'd have to increase the prices every year, because that's just how it works in the insurance business. You'd have to charge more year after year. You'd have to follow standards that are more concerned with cost savings and old procedures and old guard and gatekeepers. You'd have to follow that process, and you could not innovate. So have to raise prices, can't innovate, can't move fast. These are the flaws of insurance. HIMS does not use insurance. And because of that, it can innovate greatly. There's multiple innovations in HIMS, and it's tough to understand. But the number one innovation of HIMS is really the doctor visit is included in the cost of a drug. In a world where knowledge costs zero, and if you have a conversation with Grok Doc, you'll know if you have a mole and you want to get the AI to check a mole, you take a picture, you send it to Grok. Grok analyzes it for you, and then it's going to create a little video explaining you what's going on. Knowledge today costs mostly zero. And even though you may say, oh, the doctor still has more knowledge. Well, first of all, that's not true. And even if it were to be true, give it a couple months. Give it a couple of months. If you think a human expert has more knowledge, give it a couple of months. That's always going to be the answer. So paying for a doctor, paying for knowledge makes no sense in the 21st century. And it's a very good thing that HIMS is not charging for the doctor, because the doctor visit most of the time is what makes the bulk of the cost. I always take this example. ED. You have an ED problem. You need a pill, okay? You go to the primary physician. Maybe they're not a urologist. Maybe they don't know how to do it. They refer you. So you go to the primary physician, $200. They refer you. Specialist, $300. And maybe you're not the right specialist. Maybe they send you to the urologist. You need to go to the endocrinologist. So they send you again to a third one. That's $300. $300, $200. You still haven't received the drug. That's the ping pong issue. The same issue with physicals. Oftentimes you get a physical, you get your labs back, doctor wants to see you again to discuss the lab results. They want to see you again to discuss the lab results. So you pay to get your labs ordered, you have one doctor visit, and then you pay to discuss the lab results. Ping pong, back and forth. Rent seeking, trad health. It's a traditional industry like literally every single other industry out there that was born in the 20th century. They do tactics like that are based on moats, that are based on regulatory capture, or you don't have a choice, right? And this is changing. This is what HIMS is disrupting, very, very, very much disrupting it. Because if you really look at how much health should cost, most medical issues, minor to mild ones, whether it's a statin because you have a heart problem, whether it's metformin because you have a little diabetes, whether you have a little ED problem and you need a tadalafil, most minor things, 85% of them are fixed with pills. It's all about the pill. The cost should be collapsed as close as possible to the cost of the pill. And in a world where knowledge is free, the only cost that remains is the cost of the pill. That's it. That's the only word that remains. Also, we are seeing a bit of an e-commerce revolution, and HIMS is part of that, but there's not just HIMS, right? Cost plus drugs from Mark Cuban, that's another one. You have Amazon. Amazon's doing pills now. That's another one. Of course, that's the disruption of physical pharmacies. We do not need physical pharmacies anymore. There's 45,000 of them. They're in the process of getting disrupted. That's why if you go to a pharmacy in the US, it looks much more like a grocery store. They sell bananas and ice cream at the pharmacy in the US. It's because the business is dead. Because today the pharmacy, it makes so much more sense for it to be online, and it's also much more secure. It's also much more private. You don't have to yell your last name at the drive-thru so that the whole town knows you're getting a pill, right? So we don't need physical pharmacies. So HIMS is part of that revolution. You're moving away from physical pharmacies, networks of stores, to a few automated warehouses that ship products overnight. You're undercutting the pharmacy benefit managers. That's another big part of the business. That's a TradFi business that's being undercut. You're undercutting the doctor. You don't need the doctors anymore. You need it from a legal standpoint, and that's why HIMS has a network of 1,500 doctors. But these doctors are mostly there to monitor the recommendation of the AI. That's what these doctors do. They monitor the recommendation. They're here in case there's a problem. They're here because of the law, and HIMS is a compliant company. But in my view, the way this future is headed is that we are going to have, and HIMS, of course, with MedMatch. HIMS has that already. It's called MedMatch with HIMS. It's this AI-enabled black box style recommender system that match patients with therapies. HIMS has over 2 million patient data files that it feeds to the black box AI, to the recommender system. And then the recommender system, based on all of the data, can make a perfect pill, can make a better recommendation, right? This is what I always say. This is how Amazon knows that you want to buy diapers before you have no idea you need diapers in about a few months. The AI of Amazon knows if someone's pregnant before they're pregnant. That's how powerful these things are. And of course, when applied to medicine, they are going to know in ways that the doctor just can't know. So the doctor, of course, is here to constrain the AI and control the AI. But at the end of the day, I firmly believe it's all going to be a recommender system. If a recommender system is so good at making you entertained by recommending a TikTok feed, if it's so good at making you addicted to Instagram or X or YouTube, it's going to be so good at making you healthy. It's going to be so good at creating a pill that works for you. And that's why it all works together. And the rest, of course, of that is customization. Customization is not cute. Customization is more than necessary, and it is possible. It's possible for the first time. For the first time, we can have customized pills. Of course, you may say this has already existed for a while. It's called compounding pharmacy, except compounding pharmacy used to be a very marginal phenomenon because we don't have automation at scale, because we don't have knowledge at scale, right? We don't have intelligence at scale that can customize a drug for someone. With an AI, you can have the customized pill and the customized manufacturing at scale, all enabled with digital intelligence and automation. And of course, in my view, that is the future. I mean, you take metformin, for example, for diabetes, they have to choose between 500 milligrams and a gram. Yeah, is it 500 milligram or a gram? What do you take, 500 or a gram? Sorry. There's no 637 gram pill with just the right vitamins so that you don't feel bad. It can't do that in trad health. HIMS can create the perfect pill for the perfect one condition or the perfect array of conditions. And how can we do that, by the way? Well, you may know that if you take a pill, actually most pills are composed of what's called an excipient. So an excipient is, often it's going to be white rice powder, like it's a white powder. And you only mix a little bit of an active compound. Oftentimes it's 1%. Right? You take it, for example, a topical cream. For example, often has 1%, 1.5%, 2%. Most of it is an excipient. It's not the active compound. So you can have an AI customize a therapy with everything you need in a single pill or in a single mode of treatment. And of course, the AI can look at all of the interactions, all of the correlations, what's indicated, what's not indicated, and it does it with a recommender system that works just like a black box. And just like we don't know how Target's customer service can know the customer's pregnant before she knows she's pregnant, we can't know why the AI knows that this is what you need. But the AI knows that this is what you need. These AIs have, of course, emergent intelligence. This is so fascinating. And so that's why I used to call HIMS an e-doctor and an e-pharmacy minus insurance. Going forward, I'm going to call HIMS an AI doctor and an AI pharmacy minus insurance. This is where we're headed. An AI doctor plus an AI pharmacy without insurance. And of course, don't you go tell me it's the AI who makes the prescription. We're not there yet. The law has not caught up. The doctors monitor the AI. But if you look at MedMatch at HIMS, somebody comes with a condition, they answer XYZ questions, and then MedMatch say, we think this is the best SSRI for that person. And it gives you like a score, like an odds score as to why this is the best, right? Kind of like when IBM Watson answers a question and said, I'm 95% confident this is the right answer. Anyway, it's an old reference here. Moving on. HIMS is an AI doctor plus an AI pharmacy minus insurance. Why? Because you can't have healthcare if trad health is involved. Trad health is sick care. This is, and I've covered this stocks, all of the nitty gritty, all of the little details. I've covered this stock for 3 years. I have a lot of doctor friends. I've talked about this so many times with them, talked about it with AI. We have sick care. We have a pretty decent sick care system. Yeah, sure, sometimes they catch the cancer really, really late, but that's sick care, right? You're not going for healthcare, you're going for sick care, right? Do we have a healthcare system? And I think it's important to realize that we actually don't really have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system. HIMS is healthcare. HIMS is healthcare. HIMS is not sick care, it's healthcare. It's taking healthy people and acting on the issues really, 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 really early so that they don't turn into greater issues, because you address them very, very early. So an example of this vision, which they just started doing, which is the labs. HIMS does labs now. And I've had conversations with doctors about this. Most doctors, if you show them this and you show them the list, and there's hundreds of tests, by the way, hundreds of tests, most doctors will tell you, oh, this is not needed. You don't need to do all of these tests. You don't need to. How do you know the recommender system does not want to use as much data as possible? The recommender system wants to use as much data as possible, and it has to be serial data. Every 6 months, you get all of the data, right? And you can look at the trajectory of each lab. And of course, you can start doing prediction. You can start to do Monte Carlo simulations. You can start to do more advanced regressions. The AI can use that black box insight and predict things down the road for you based on the data that you feed it. And you want to feed it as much data as possible, as often as possible, which is why I'm so confident that at some point HIMS will integrate with smartwatches, right? Smartwatches are very important. HIMS will likely integrate with smartwatches. HIMS may release its own, scale, or more advanced scale, maybe that takes your heart rate. I could see that in the future. Oura Ring, you could pair your rings. Any type of medical device tool that are, by the way, easier and easier to get at home, should be synced with your HIMS app. And you should have the AI figure out what you need to be in perfect health. That's what I firmly believe. And when I see what's happening, and you can see that common thread between all of these stocks, Of course, for example, I talk about Tesla, I talk about AI. We know AI is used all over with Tesla. Like the aluminum alloy on the Model Y, that's AI generated. Many of the parts used on the Tesla Model Y, AI generated. Sailor, a lot of the products that Sailor makes, Stretch especially, AI generated. It's a perfect product, AI idea. And so of course we're going to have AI generated health solutions. And what I'm very excited about with AI, and I think a company like HIMS, because it owns modern day engineers, like this is not Epic. This is not a software like Epic with a bunch of legacy debt and an inability to work with a data sheet of millions and millions of rows. Like this is not Epic, right? This is a modern, late stage Silicon Valley funded company, founded well within the era of AI. And we're going to need this AI to do things like, for example, one of the features I really believe in is you're going to have a digital twin of you. We do digital twins of everything today. You wouldn't build a bridge, a car without a digital twin. Why would you put a pill in your body, without having a digital twin of you and trying it out on the digital twin? I think AIs will run simulation before they prescribe you something. That AI, that black box, will run simulations. And you could, if you have years of data, which we're going to begin to have on people, if you have one person, one giant data set, one solution, and simulations, one master simulation, and you know exactly how that's going to react with the best data, and it's all AI. And this is, by the way, something that we are seeing in every single field of science. For example, a few times on this channel, I've talked about marketing research. and how marketing is going for a revolution of its own, right? If you follow all the marketing companies, we know tastes are unique, right? People have unique tastes, and so today it's one ID, one ad, right? One ID, one ad, and the AI knows exactly which ad you're likely to click on, right? And of course, marketing research is in many ways very similar to medical research. Medical research, they do studies. They're like, we need to have XYZ number of males and females. They need to be between this age and that age. We need to have that condition and this condition. And you're not using the whole data set. And you're not using one-to-one research. You're not using simulation. This is something that AI, I think, is going to greatly revolutionize. And make no mistake, a lot of medical research still group 1, group 2 type stuff. And AI is coming in that space, and we're seeing enormous progress with the use of AI. Tempus AI, for example, this sort of matching tool between therapies and patient is absolutely fascinating to me. There's so much revolution happening, and it's all about the data, and it's all about the data set. And what is HIMS doing with this? It's creating a unified company with unified data, and that's why Dudum said on the call that they eventually want this to be free. They eventually want this to be free. The price for this is already 30 times cheaper than if you were to get all these labs individually. You can go on labcorp.com and look at the cost of each of these, like $45 here, $75 there, XYZ. Like all of these specific tests cost a bunch of money under the current insurance system. This is tens of thousands of dollars worth of tests available for $199. So that's already a disruption right there. Dudum says they wanted to get it to free, because if you get all of this data free and then you get the AI working on you, you can have absolutely outstanding medical care. And if this cannot happen from the inside. You could not have had this disruption come from an insider. This is why Saylor's disrupting finance, because he's no insider of finance. He has no preconceived notions. This is why Musk is disrupting transportation. He has no preconceived notions. He's a tech guy. He's a PayPal guy, right? Same for HIMS. I'm so confident about HIMS. The doctor at HIMS is here for legal compliance. And in fact, if you talk to a lot of doctors, you'll find out that the role of a doctor very often is very close to that of a lawyer. They're here, they check, they write notes. Doctors often complain about how long it takes to write those notes. Those notes are here to ensure compliance. Those notes are here to make sure that the pharmacist hired by their insurance company will not deny reimbursement. HIMS will enable AI to take control of all of this. It's an AI story too. I'm very confident about this, and I think the stock is a bargain and a steal. So hopefully I was able to take you on a journey of my fundamental thinking on this and how it all sticks together. And of course, there's other companies that are using these principles to disrupt, and I kind of making my goal to find them on this channel, to find these themes to disrupt, right? I mean, all of my videos, follow the 0 to 1 principle. That's why on this channel I never talk about moats. I don't talk about moats. I don't want my companies to have moats. It's pointless. There's no moat in a deflationary market. There's no moat if you have one company better than everybody else. There's no moats if you have natural monopolies. So anyways, this was of course not investment advice. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe. Oh, no health advice either, by the way. No insurance advice. So please like, please subscribe. Follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful, wonderful day.